Welcome back to GH Spoilers channel. Today we will learn about the intriguing developments surrounding Jen Sidwell's mysterious plot against Alexis Davis and what this could mean for several Port Charles residents in the coming weeks. The mysterious dagger plot. Jen Sidwell has revealed his true colors in a calculated scheme that has left Port Charles buzzing with speculation. During what appeared to be an innocent encounter at Windermere, Sidwell orchestrated a clever trap for the unsuspecting attorney Alexis Davis. By presenting Helena Cassadine's infamous dagger, the very weapon that claimed the life of Alexis' mother years ago, Sidwell created a seemingly nostalgic moment that concealed his true intentions. The emotional weight of holding the dagger that took her mother's life momentarily blinded Alexis to Sidwell's actual plan. Only after departing Windermere did the truth emerge. Sidwell had meticulously ensured Alexis' fingerprints covered the weapon while carefully avoiding leaving his own. This calculated move suggests he's preparing to frame her for a crime that hasn't yet occurred. Legal experts familiar with Port Charles's history of frame-ups note that this technique is particularly devious. Using an object with such emotional significance ensures the victim handles it without suspicion, explains one observer of Port Charles's criminal patterns. The question now haunting everyone is, who is Sidwell planning to harm with this weapon, and why has he selected Alexis as his scapegoat? Potential victims and motives. The most concerning theory circulating among fans involves Drew Quartermain, who has accumulated numerous enemies in recent months. His business dealings and personal conflicts have placed him in a precarious position. Portia Robinson's recent comment about wishing to see Drew dead has only fueled speculation that a classic whodunit storyline is developing. Drew's current custody situation regarding Scout Quartermain could provide a potential motive for Alexis. By keeping Scout from her brothers and extended family, Drew has created tension that Sidwell could exploit to make Alexis appear guilty. Their generally amicable relationship would make such an accusation shocking, perhaps exactly what Sidwell is counting on. The custody battle has intensified recently, with Drew refusing to compromise on visitation schedules. The strain between Drew and Sam's family has never been more pronounced, notes a longtime Port Charles resident. Sidwell could easily manipulate this situation to create a believable scenario where Alexis snapped under pressure. The Sonny Corinthos connection. Despite Sidwell's claims that he hasn't come to Port Charles to target Sonny Corinthos, many remain skeptical. The Esplanade project has created significant friction, and Sonny's involvement makes him a logical target for Sidwell's machinations. If Sonny were attacked but not killed, perhaps left unconscious or unable to communicate, it would create the perfect opportunity for Alexis to be framed. Their complicated history and occasional conflicts over Christina Corinthos Davis provide enough background for Sidwell to construct a plausible narrative of animosity. The timing is particularly suspicious as Sonny has recently expanded his business interests into areas that directly compete with Sidwell's apparent goals. When two powerful men clash in Port Charles, collateral damage is inevitable, observes a local business owner. Alexis could become that collateral damage. Sam McCall's potential return. Perhaps the most electrifying theory emerging from this situation involves Sam McCall. Despite widespread belief in her death, persistent rumors suggest Sam may actually be alive and in hiding. Her supposed demise has never been fully explained, and several witnesses have reported strange occurrences that could indicate her continued existence. If Sam is indeed alive and observing from the shadows, seeing her mother framed for murder could force her hand. Sam's protective instincts toward her family have always been her defining characteristic, says a former associate. Threatening Alexis might be the one thing that would bring Sam out of hiding. The question remains, what is Sam hiding from? Some speculate she discovered damaging information about Sidwell before her disappearance. Others suggest she may be working with law enforcement to build a case against him. Either way, Sidwell's move against Alexis could trigger the return of Port Charles's most determined investigator. Sidwell's true identity and motives. The most perplexing aspect of this entire situation is Sidwell himself. Despite establishing himself in Port Charles, his true identity and motivations remain shrouded in mystery. His interest in the Esplanade project initially suggested business motivations, but his elaborate scheme against Alexis indicates something far more personal. Historical records of Port Charles families reveal no previous connections to anyone named Sidwell, leading some to speculate he may be using an alias. His knowledge of Helena's dagger and its significance to Alexis suggests a deep familiarity with Cassadine history that a newcomer shouldn't possess. The precision of Sidwell's plan indicates years of planning, notes a security consultant familiar with Port Charles's criminal elements. This isn't opportunistic, it's the execution of a long-gestating revenge plot. The Cassadine connection. Helena Cassadine's dagger being central to this plot cannot be coincidental. The Cassadine legacy of vendettas and elaborate schemes suggests Sidwell may have connections to this notorious family. Could he be a previously unknown Cassadine heir seeking to reclaim family assets or settle old scores? Alexis, as a Cassadine by birth, would represent a logical target for such vengeance. Her position as both a Cassadine and a respected attorney makes her particularly valuable as either an ally or an enemy. By framing her, Sidwell could be eliminating a potential threat while simultaneously advancing other aspects of his plan. The Windermere setting for this trap further reinforces the Cassadine connection. Choosing that location wasn't random, suggests a historian of Port Charles architecture. Sidwell wanted Alexis surrounded by Cassadine history when he executed this first step of his plan. What happens next? As Port Charles residents await the next development in this unfolding drama, several possibilities emerge. Will Drew become the victim of a carefully planned attack? Will Sonny find himself fighting for his life while Alexis faces accusations? Or will the intended victim be someone entirely unexpected? The most hopeful scenario involves Sam's potential return. If she has been monitoring Sidwell from the shadows, she may have gathered enough evidence to expose his true nature before he can harm anyone. Her investigative skills combined with her personal stake in protecting Alexis could make her Sidwell's most dangerous adversary. Whatever unfolds in the coming days, one thing is certain: Jen Sidwell's fingerprint-free dagger and his elaborate plot against Alexis Davis represent just the opening moves in what promises to be a complex and dangerous game that will reshape Port Charles for months to come. Next, we will learn about the explosive secret that threatens to shatter multiple lives in Port Charles as a decades-old adoption story comes to light with devastating consequences for some of our favorite characters. A tangled web of secrets and ultimatums. The tension between Lulu Spencer and Brook Lynn Quartermain has reached a breaking point that promises to send shockwaves through Port Charles. With the determination of someone who believes she's fighting for justice, Lulu has issued a clear ultimatum to Brook Lynn. Either tell Dante Falconeri about the son he never knew existed, or Lulu will do it herself. This confrontation stems from Lulu's unwavering belief that Dante deserves to know about his biological child, regardless of the chaos such a revelation might cause. The ultimatum hangs in the air like a guillotine blade, ready to drop at any moment. Relationship experts familiar with Port Charles dynamics note that Lulu's position as Dante's ex-wife complicates matters significantly. When former spouses insert themselves into each other's lives with explosive information, the motivations can be complex and not always altruistic, explains Dr. Marlena Evans, a renowned psychologist who has studied similar cases. Brook Lynn finds herself cornered, with precious little time to decide how to handle this impossible situation. Will she be given a genuine opportunity to approach Dante on her terms? Or will Lulu's impatience and righteousness lead her to detonate this bombshell without warning? The clock is ticking, and Brook Lynn's carefully constructed life hangs in the balance. Local gossip columnist Diane Donovan speculates, this town has seen its share of secrets exposed at the worst possible moments, usually during weddings or funerals. If Brook Lynn doesn't act quickly, we could be witnessing another classic Port Charles public revelation that leaves everyone stunned. The hidden truth about Gio Palmieri. In a twist that defies imagination, the son Brook Lynn believed was lost to her forever has actually been living under the Quartermain roof all along. Gio Palmieri, who has been considered part of the extended family for years, is in fact Brook Lynn's biological child with Dante. This revelation transforms every interaction, every family dinner, every casual conversation between Brook Lynn and Gio into something profoundly different when viewed through this new lens. Following the death of his adoptive mother when he was just 13, Gio became even more integrated into the Quartermain household. What appeared to be an act of family compassion was actually a carefully orchestrated plan by Lois to keep her grandson close while maintaining the secret of his true parentage. The psychological implications of this situation are staggering. For a mother to interact with her biological child without acknowledging their true relationship creates a unique form of emotional dissonance, notes Dr. Kevin Collins, who specializes in family psychology. Both parties form authentic bonds without understanding the genetic connection that underlies their relationship. Joe's personality traits and talents have likely shown echoes of both Brook Lynn and Dante, subtle clues that went unnoticed by everyone except perhaps Lois. His musical inclinations might mirror Brook Lynn's, while his sense of justice and moral compass could reflect Dante's influence, despite the lack of direct parenting. Longtime Quartermain household staff have remarked on occasions when Brook Lynn seemed to have an inexplicable protective instinct toward Gio, moments that were dismissed as simple family affection but may have been driven by a deeper, unconscious maternal connection. Lulu's crusade for truth. Driven by what she perceives as moral clarity, Lulu Spencer has positioned herself as the arbiter of truth in this complicated situation. After illegally accessing attorney Martin Gray's confidential files, a serious ethical breach that could have legal consequences, Lulu discovered documentation detailing Brook Lynn's pregnancy and the subsequent adoption of her child with Dante. Lulu's investigation began as a desperate search for information about her own missing daughter, but instead uncovered this explosive secret. The irony of violating someone else's privacy while searching for her own child seems lost on Lulu, who has become singularly focused on ensuring Dante learns about his son. Her approach reflects a troubling disregard for the potential consequences of her actions. Family counselor Felicia Scorpio observes, when someone appoints themselves as the truth-teller in situations involving other people's children, they often fail to consider the full spectrum of emotional damage their revelations might cause. Lulu's own experience with teenage pregnancy should theoretically give her empathy for Brook Lynn's position, yet she seems unable to extend the same understanding she once needed to her former rival. This cognitive dissonance suggests that Lulu's motivations may be more complex than simple concern for Dante's parental rights. The fact that Lulu and Dante share children of their own adds another layer to this already complicated situation. Is Lulu truly acting in Dante's best interest, or is there an element of wanting to maintain control over the definition of Dante's family? These questions linger as Lulu pushes forward with her crusade. Brook Lynn's impossible choice. 2 decades ago, a teenage Brook Lynn Quartermain made what she believed was the most responsible decision possible in an impossible situation. Pregnant with Dante Falconeri's child, she chose to accompany her mother Lois on tour, give birth in San Francisco, and place her baby for adoption, all without informing Dante of the pregnancy. This decision wasn't made lightly. Brook Lynn feared that telling Dante would remove her agency in the situation, but his sense of responsibility would override her need to make the right choice for herself as a young woman unprepared for motherhood. The emotional weight of this decision has likely influenced every relationship she's had since, creating invisible barriers to intimacy and trust. In a heartbreaking detail that adds depth to Brook Lynn's sacrifice, she reportedly never even held her baby before the adoption, a common but painful choice that many birth mothers make to ease the separation process. This moment of restraint, refusing to create a physical bond that would make letting go even harder, speaks volumes about Brook Lynn's maturity even as a teenager. When confronted by Lulu, Brook Lynn attempted to appeal to their shared experience, reminding Lulu of her own teenage pregnancy and the difficult decisions that accompanied it. This appeal to empathy fell on deaf ears, leaving Brook Lynn isolated in her fear and uncertainty about how to proceed. Adoption counselor Emily Quartermain notes, closed adoptions from that era were designed to create clean breaks, but they often leave birth parents with unresolved grief that can resurface decades later. Brook Lynn likely buried these feelings deeply, never expecting them to be excavated in such a public and threatening manner. Dante's right to know. At the center of this emotional maelstrom is Dante Falconeri, who remains completely unaware that he has a biological son approximately 20 years of age. As a police detective who values truth and justice, the revelation that such a significant fact about his own life has been concealed from him will likely trigger a profound identity crisis. Dante's character has always been defined by his strong moral compass and his dedication to family. Learning that he has a son he never knew about, especially one who has been living in proximity to him, could fundamentally alter his understanding of himself and his relationships. Legal experts point out that while Dante may feel morally entitled to information about his biological child, the legal landscape surrounding parental rights and closed adoptions is complex. Attorney Diane Miller explains, in cases where a father was never informed of a pregnancy, and the child was legally adopted, the biological father's rights become a complicated legal question with no simple answer. The timing of this revelation is particularly significant as Dante has established himself as a father to other children. How will this news affect his relationship with them? Will he feel compelled to establish a relationship with his firstborn son, potentially disrupting Joe's understanding of his own identity? Former Port Charles Police Commissioner Max Scorpio, who has navigated complex family situations himself, observes, Dante's training as a detective has taught him to seek truth, but nothing prepares you for discovering that a fundamental truth about your own life has been hidden from you. His reaction will depend on whether he can separate his feelings of betrayal from his response to learning he has a son. The illegal discovery. The catalyst for this potential explosion of secrets was Lulu Spencer's illegal entry into attorney Martin Gray's room and her subsequent unauthorized access to his confidential legal files. This serious breach of privacy occurred while Lulu was desperately searching for information about her missing daughter, a motivation that she likely believes justifies her actions. Instead of finding clues about her own child, Lulu discovered detailed documentation regarding Brook Lynn's pregnancy and the adoption of her son with Dante. This accidental discovery has set in motion a chain of events that threatens to unravel multiple lives. The irony of violating someone's privacy while searching for information about her own child creates a moral ambiguity around Lulu's actions that she seems unwilling to acknowledge. Legal ethics professor Alexis Davis points out, attorney-client privilege is a cornerstone of our legal system. Accessing those files wasn't just morally questionable, it was potentially criminal. Martin Gray's meticulous record-keeping raises questions about why he maintained such detailed information about an adoption that supposedly had no connection to Brook Lynn's current legal matters. Some speculate that these records may have been related to Lois Cerullo's legal arrangements rather than any action taken by Brook Lynn herself. The information Lulu found led her to believe that Brook Lynn is actively searching for her son, though this appears to be a misinterpretation. This misunderstanding adds another layer of complexity to an already complicated situation, potentially rushing Lulu to action based on incorrect assumptions. Lois Cerullo's master plan. Perhaps the most stunning revelation in this tangled narrative is the role played by Lois Cerullo, Brook Lynn's mother. Far from facilitating a traditional closed adoption that would permanently separate her daughter from her grandchild, Lois orchestrated an elaborate plan to keep the baby within the family orbit while protecting Brook Lynn's future. When Brook Lynn went on tour with her mother and gave birth in San Francisco, Lois managed the adoption process personally. Rather than placing her grandson with strangers, she arranged for him to be adopted by someone connected to the Quartermain family. This allowed her to maintain a relationship with her grandchild while honoring Brook Lynn's decision not to parent at that time. After the tragic death of Joe's adoptive mother when he was 13, Lois ensured that he became even more integrated into the Quartermain household. This careful maneuvering allowed her grandson to grow up surrounded by his biological family, including his mother, without anyone, including Brook Lynn and Gio themselves, being aware of their true connection. Family therapist Laura Collins observes, what Lois created was essentially a closed adoption in plain sight. A situation where biological family members interact regularly without acknowledging or perhaps even knowing their genetic connection. The psychological implications of such an arrangement are profound and largely unexplored in clinical literature. Lois has carried this secret alone for approximately 2 decades, watching her daughter and grandson develop a relationship that, while genuine, is built on an incomplete understanding of their connection. Her motivation appears to have been protecting both Brook Lynn and her grandchild while keeping them in each other's lives, a well-intentioned deception with potentially devastating consequences now that the truth threatens to emerge.